What's up? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today, and with me I have some more RPG horror stories. Speaking of RPGs, my actual IRL brother is going to try D&D for the very first time. A twin, actually. I'm actually kind of excited to run his first game and to see him just try D&D for the very first time. I think it's gonna be great. I'll let you know how it goes. Who knows, maybe we'll make a video on it. You know, the after story of what happened afterwards and how did it go. Nevertheless, let's get some RPG horror stories for today. GM AI generated my character despite my protesting. So a while ago, I joined the Cyberpunk Red game. We had to switch GMs due to the drama that's not related. With this new GM was at first a player. He posted his character art, which was AI generated. He was a bit iffy on it, but whatever, I can't control him. He becomes the new GM. We'll go to session 0. GM proposes that we all have characters art with consistent styles. Me being the only artist in the group pushed back a bit, saying that I like to make my own character art, as there are specific details I like to implement, even proposing to do everyone's characters if consistency was the issue. They told me I was fine just doing my own, but they were gonna do theirs themselves. This fool, somebody is literally offering to put their skills, the art skills, to make sure that everything stays uniform, and this GM says, no, I want to do my way, probably generate AI images and stuff. Puh. If I had the ability to make 3D avatar for every single character in my campaigns, including characters for all my players, I gladly would, but unfortunately, time, or really that's about it, time is a bit of a pain in the A to deal with. I mean, I don't even have the time sometimes to fix up some things. I still have issues on this avatar too. I mean, I don't know what that says. Maybe it just shows that I'm an amateur like model maker when it comes to Blender, or I'm just too lazy, or maybe, I don't know, or maybe I don't worry too much about minor little clippings here and there. Listen, when you make so much models on VR chat, you at some point just get so desensitized to little clipping issues and stuff, a little bit of issue here and there. Oh well, if I don't get fixed, I'll probably make a new version of it later on and fix that later. Anyway, let's see what this GM decides to do after the brilliant idea of choosing not to have their player draw everybody. So I started working, making a pick crew for reference and whatnot. About a week later, I looked into the VTT we were using and my character sheet to check on stuff, only to find out the GM had AI generated my character portrait. If a player wants to draw their own stuff, let them draw their own stuff, man. Just let them. Like, it's one thing, let's say for example, if you want to just use AI or any other tools for yourself or whatever, it's your home game, do whatever the hell you want. I ain't your dad, I'm not gone for milk, I don't care what you do, I really don't. But it's one thing to force your players onto that, even though the player literally said themselves, no thanks, I'ma draw my own character. If they want to draw their character, let them draw their character, man. Seriously, I was pretty hurt from this, even after voicing my discomfort of using AI and telling them I'd like to hand draw my stuff. They still made a machine make my character art, which didn't even look like a pre-crew I posted from them and what I envisioned. I didn't tell the GM I was uncomfortable. We already went through that kind of conversation. Instead, I told him I couldn't make it and dipped as quickly as I could. Edit. I should say this to the people saying he was probably using the AI as a placeholder. I told him to please use the pick crew I made, as it was much closer to my character design and not some AI generated conventionally attractive chick. Like, seriously, you generated my character. Least you could do is give her cute short hair like I gave her. Yeah, though I feel like if you were to speak to the GM directly, I mean, no matter how hard-headed they are, there's no way the GM would be that hard-headed to be like, no, you have to use my AI generated image, my AI generated sloppy toppy. I need that. Actually, I probably shouldn't say sloppy toppy. That's gotta get me in trouble with YouTube. If you don't know what sloppy toppy is, you probably aren't old enough to know about that stuff, so this tiefling is gonna be silent on it. On the conversation about the placeholder, that is valid, but also you provided, as you said, a pick crew of your character that they could have used as a placeholder already. They could have just used that while you worked on your art, just so there's something going on there in case you decide to take a couple of weeks to make your character. Who knows? I don't know who this needs to be said to, and honestly, I find it kind of embarrassing if I need to even say it out loud, but I guess I'll just say the quiet part out loud. GMs and DMs, don't force your players to have AI images if they don't want to have AI images. Give them an option if you do use that, but also respect their decision if they choose not to use it or do anything specific about it, regardless if it doesn't mesh with the art style itself. And if that's for whatever reason a deal breaker that a player wants to draw their own art of their character, God forbid, well, I guess I hope the player finds a better game out there, because they deserve to have a GM that actually will allow them to express their character with their own hands. That'd be nice. I can't believe that it's even need to be said. Allow players to express themselves with their own hands. That's not even something I should be saying out loud. That should just be by default, the standard. It shouldn't be an exception. It's the rule. Anyway, let's go ahead and continue with the next story for today. An autopsy of a living world which fell to sexualization, clickness, and non-communication. Between coding, college, and other creative pursuits, I've been browsing RPG Reddit, so I figured I should add a story of my own that I feel I can get to the heart of a lot of strange bad behavior and bad spaces in the TTRPG community online. My experience with this server only lasted a few days, but I received a lot of information from a friend of mine who was in for a month. They convinced me to dip my toe in, join, have this experience, and profusely apologize for how it went. This is a horror story of one of the most viscerally bewildering and, for a small moment, deeply emotionally uncomfy experiences I've had in RPGs, but also wanted to sort of be a beacon of the ways ambitious social communities in RPG space often fail and create a lot of human tension, misery, maladaptive hierarchies, I hope I pronounced it right, and actual pain all over a game. A game that should have deep social emotional buy-in when it's good, but can often hijack that buy-in when it doesn't deserve it. The basic concept was that this Blonkolva server was a living world, with multiple GMs, weekly real-time downtime actions that people could undertake, dozens of players at varying levels in Pathfinder 2 Gestalt system, basically empowered characters based around multi-class combinations, and that sort of thing. The narrative is that it was an isekai world. All PCs came from other universes shunted into this one, not having to make the most of it and do whatever they want. We had anime XPs, sci-fi XPs, historical XPs, and just simple fantasy characters from whom the isekai idea was not important. My entry into the world was simple. I created a sort of a gallant knightly woman with a Renaissance revolutionary aesthetic, and personally leaned into mounted combat and empowering my allies. I thought narrative, deep story-based adventures, and mechanical granularity like that would be appreciated. When I entered though, I immediately found several deeply maladjusted issues that made me reconsider this whole thing, and contributed to me leaving midway through the first session I actually got to be a part of. In a word, this server was basically one giant mass hypnosis. One problem is that the server advertised itself as narrative first and player driven, but the reality is that they were trying to serve 3 communities and 2 sub-communities at once. The min-maxers. This is evident in having the game be Gestalt, multiclassing and rewarding people who know the ins and outs to make Pathfinder characters truly busted and complex. Much of the game's server discussion was about builds and numbers, and much character stuff happened in non-session downtime actions dedicated to numerical increases. The narrativists, people who want to play in sessions and contribute to a story via their adventures, wanting deep, flavorful setup and continued through lines of plot. This is high in-game engagement, high in-out-of-game engagement, and primarily focuses on what's happening rather than the mechanics. I'd fall into that category. The role players. These people create characters and then treat the server as an open roleplay forum, and there were even open roleplay slots that anyone could jump into and just start being their characters in. The one interactions, stories, ships, slice of life, and exposition-laden explorations of their ideas without needing to filter of the actual game. The ERPers! Yes, indeed! They allowed full ERP! And not only in rooms and text, no, full, active, hyper-sexualized characters with horny references being submitted in the same space as self-serious fantasy ideas of 40k reference genre pastiches, I don't know what that word is, and then being expected to be played in voice sessions. What? Significant amount of people in the server were just there to bang functionally. The ERP chats were the most active thing there, despite technically being a tiny subset minority of channels. I literally can't even imagine just the server being like this. You have one moment where it's like suddenly the server has Leonidas, I betrayed him, I need to rescue him immediately, and then suddenly somebody in a corner is just, oh yeah, Hardy, yeah, you take that tiefling, do it. I failed, my friends. What will they think of me? What will my father think of me? God, yeah, take that tiefling, I can't even imagine that. You just have serious roleplay, min-maxing conversations, and somebody literally screwing in a corner, all in the same chat. It was also in voice chat together? Are people just moaning it up in VCs for ERP? Crazy. And last, the social clique. This isn't really a mindset around the game, but it was a sub-community. The server owner and their close friends and mods, as I understand it, were basically in a voice call together 16 hours a day between running games, and oftentimes people would just join other sessions to simply listen or occasionally comment on things and keep an eye. My understanding is that they were tight-knit, power-hungry, generally parasocially attached to the concept of the server, and used it as some power fantasy escapism from their lives. Now, individually, an ERP server, a cliquish group of friends who maybe are online too much, a mechanically dense min-max fest of challenge and dice, and text roleplay communities are all fine. But this was trying to be all of them at once, with no barriers, no way to choose what one saw, nothing cordoned off or isolated, haphazardly thrown in. I suspect the vague suggestion of yearning or some players who wanted the server to also have this other thing in it. Right. And I need to make it clear, this is a self-serious grandiose project. I believe the server owner and their immediate cliques when they told me that they did not like or even really appreciate ERP, but they were trying to be inclusive of it for some reason. You know, they're probably all enjoying it. They're probably all enjoying it. They're saying like, we want to try to be inclusive, but you know they're just a bunch of perverts. Listen, I know a pervert. Trust me, a pervert knows a pervert. And those people, probably perverts. If you want to have an ERP corner, make a private ERP corner away from everybody else. Simply don't force people to just see it in general chat. Nobody cares for that kind of thing. People that care for it, they'll join for it, and that's fine. Typically in a Discord server, like just any general Discord server I've been in, sometimes they have a not safe for work section, but you have to go to that section to find that stuff. Otherwise, it's whatever. General chat is kept clean, at least semi-clean, at least safe for work. Effectively, you had min-maxers who spend every IRL tick over of downtime narrating how they craft magic items and make oodles of money in pursuit of single session where they come in and wipe the floor with everything. ERPers posting the reminiscent horny ads in space where other people asking if they can have a meaningful character moment with another person. Quite worried normal server goers just trying to get into the game and have some fun as members of the mod team, or the owner himself would just kind of try apps around and watch what was going on to make passionate pointed commands and bad behavior. And people in games having to chafe against an adventure that is very traditional fantasy and has neither the isekai flavor, the narrative depth and ongoing story, or the deep complex mechanical fights that the individual members of the server wanted. This server is like a jack of all trades but a master of none, and the only kind of jacking is going on is 3 people in a corner just being horny together. And yet, the community itself was also sort of toxically in-group addicted in a strange way, despite there being nothing but bad vibes, complaints, and isolated silos all around. Hard to describe. Even my friend insisted that they just wanted their character to be fleshed out with their friends. And I know it's bad, rough server, but I'm in it now and may as well ride it out for what fun I can salvage. That seems like it was a dominant position, to the point some people would be having deeply turbulent and strangely aggressive conversations about rules and limits and the way the server's mechanics worked, but then would join in sort of ritualistic, cultural, no bad vibes talk to the owner when someone made an active comment accusing the server of being weird and nasty. This collapses on my personal experience after my trawling and investigating was done, and it was time to just join the scheduled game. And then I met the Booblin. Booblin? Go on, you have me at attention in more ways than one. I'm kidding, by the way. Both at attention and at attention. You know what I mean. Anyway, let's see about this Booblin. Let's see what happens with that. This is their official species title, and I expect no laughs from the audience. You can't stop me. I will laugh at Booblin. GM told me and the players petitioned to me that this is to be treated as no joking matter. Booblin, as a taxonomic category, describes a goblin who is incredibly top-heavy and adept at charming non-goblin species into working with them. Or, you know, every goblin girl and every hentai in the world. Wowee! I had to experience this firsthand after the first combat encounter in a simple little story about being on the road to an orc chieftain and being attacked by bandits loyal to him. I forget what the other characters involved, but we did not receive a sort of a roster beforehand, nor were we told who was going to be in the game besides us, simply that we got a slot and what the time was. So after this easy, trivial encounter, where I barely get to interact with my own mechanics and it's clean up 2 rounds or so, our Booblin decides to interrogate a survivor. Now, the GM was very buddy-buddy about the Booblin thing, And for what it's worth, the player playing said goblin was like the most non-awkward and socially graceful attempt I've ever seen of pulling others into your ERP fantasy. He had no shame and was downright well spoken about this squeaky, bubbly voice. That makes it worse. I have to stress, much worse than much more visceral and discomforting. It seemed natural, normalized, nobody mentioned it, nobody expressed discomfort beside me very gently recommending if we could tone it down a few times, and so on. This person had other characters who were all horny bait, which made it past the mods, seemed accepted by the local server culture, and yet at the same time we were talked about in DMs by people I knew in the server as a sort of silent discomfort that most people felt, but nobody wanted to be ostracized for pointing out. I don't know how an RPG server becomes a massive, nearly 100-person strong, self-regulating high school group, but that seems like what happened. So the GM leans into it, describing the arousal of this prisoner as the Booblin sits atop him, asking for information on his boss, and then brazenly puts a collar around said prisoner bandit and basically emotionally manipulates him into being her servant. The last thing I hear before I left the call and dipped was a GM describing the prisoner of war, whose friends just died around him, as saying, "Yes, mistress," in a shuddering tone. I left the call. I should have just left the server. Instead, I was feeling myself. Rather than just disconnecting, I think I felt a profound sense of disturbance and alienation. Okay, so that's what you mean by feeling yourself. But listen, it's a horny server. I don't know what kind of things they do. I don't know what sort of proclivities you're into. If somebody tells me they're feeling themselves, I usually think they're doing something lewd. Maybe I'm just a pervert, who knows? I didn't understand why a social space like this existed. Why people shackled themselves to it. Why there was a sense of voyeurism and social control. Why folks put up with it. Why the dream of the huge open player driven world server game was something that people were willing to do anything, to sacrifice anything, their time and comfort and enjoyment, to simply be part of. I've never ever seen a server like that function executively for more than a few weeks, and this was the tipping point into me concluding that they were a lost cause. I had to understand it, contextualize it, and say something. It's my personal brand of autism, real diagnosed, and mental relation to facts. I want to give a general thought process. I think people were just trying to play this like it's an MMO. And listen, if you ever played an MMO, if you know what MMOs are like, sometimes it's just difficult to leave because you have everything there. You have your friends there, you have your social circles there, you have your activities to do there, you have your cool story there, you have your min-maxing you can do there if you want to, leveling up stuff, working on projects, doing in-game chores at the end of the day, like those dailies and stuff. MMOs are basically like almost like a second life. And the server is kind of run like an MMO. It has a little bit of everything, and the only difference is it doesn't do any one specific thing correctly, but you could double dip and triple dip and quadruple dip into different aspects of the server. It was a social space for people to engage in, and less of a server to actually play games in. You're looking for a game to actually engage in and play. Everybody else was treating it as just a little social space to do whatever, and people tolerate each other's weirdness about it, whether it's a min-max server with a gestalt system, or a narrative story thing, or roleplay heavy, or ERP heavy, or just a clicky hangout server. People tolerated that because that was basically their social environment. Also, this is not a commentary towards MMOs and stuff. I'm just trying to use an analogy of what MMO is versus what this server is trying to be. So I shared that vocally with the class. I made a big old moralizing tirade about the bad abusive text behavior I witnessed from the server owner, the hypersexualization, the paternalistic attitudes of the mods towards character submissions, but their contrasting laxness about actually moderating community into a cohesive whole, and then some. Then I left, because I wanted the moral point of grandstanding, not the argument. That was a mistake on my part, I admit it. I did not expect the server owner to friend me under the pretext of chewing me out or for insulting her friends, insulting her people, her creation, asking for more clarification before going out of her way to grandstand herself. The defense is that it was just a joke. The GM and players' behavior wasn't the whole server. They did not have a culture of ERP, and that she was a grown woman with a life and family values and didn't need to be talked down to about her behavior in an RPG server. I don't want to say necessarily I want to be on the GM side of things, but yeah, you kind of did do some grandstanding. Voicing feedback I think is a good thing, but if you're gonna write a big block of text saying this is bad, that is bad, you all suck, and this is terrible, and that is terrible, no matter how bad it is, it's not gonna be a good look if you just just post this big criticism, not wait for any feedback, don't communicate anything, and just bounce out of there because it sounds like you're just like firing off a shot before leaving, and you know, you can't really exactly have a conversation. I feel like there could be a chance, potentially, maybe even a tiny iota, but there could be a potentiality of the server actually cleaning this stuff up if you voice the concerns directly to the GM and actually listen to them. But instead it turned into you post a bunch of stuff, you left the server before you got any feedback whatsoever. The GM responds because they want to, you know, you're criticizing their server, their baby, the players that are there, and you probably maybe said some not so nice words. I'm assuming, I don't know what kind of words you use, but I'm just assuming things got kind of heated. They made the response towards you, and then things got again heated in the DMs, and then things kind of crashed down. Could this been a productive conversation? Yes, potentially. Is it really worth your time to just do what you did? Probably not. Should you have just left after posting that criticism? I don't think so. I think you should have just kept it open in case there was like any opportunity for feedback. There's also a potential possibility that maybe you might be just a little bit over embellishing the amount of ERP that was going on there, or the kind of disaster that was happening on there. I don't want to pick any specific sides, but let's be honest, we don't have any screenshots or evidence that any of this stuff was actually posted there. We only have anecdotal story to go off of. Now, we can believe the story as it is, or we could also think of a possibility that maybe things were a little bit different way and you're just painting things in a more worse light than it actually was. Maybe there was a little bit of ERP horny stuff allowed on the side. Maybe the Booblin was indeed allowed a little bit, but maybe the ERP wasn't so terrible and didn't go extremely gratuitous. Having a big boob goblin, I mean, isn't that just a standard for TTRPGs at that point? If a player wants to make a stacked up shorty, then make a stacked up shorty. And I mean, I don't know if they specifically want to call the character the Booblin, and that's how they just define. Maybe just a big haha funny server, you know, big haha joke within the server. I don't know, man. When somebody talks about like something being too lewd, I do sometimes try to second guess it because I've been defined as being too lewd sometimes. I don't know, man. I'm a lewd individual. I like to engage in degenerate buffoonery and just do a bunch of silly little dumb sex jokes because haha funny. But would I allow ERP in my server? Definitely not. Are my friends lewd? Yes. Would they do ERP in the server? Definitely not. Assuming what you say is true and people are actually straight up ERPing themselves, getting down and dirty, down and into the grind of things in the general chat, then yeah, that's not okay. Maybe there could be also a possibility that maybe you're over embellishing how much ERP is going on. Saucy talk doesn't always mean ERP, by the way. Just because somebody flirts in character doesn't mean it is ERP. ERP is straight up put wiener in hole, bang hard, bang bang bang, feel good. You can tell I'm not an erotic role player. Also, don't look at me like that. I'm not an erotic roleplay. You don't know what kind of things I do. You don't know the things I've done. My perspective is that I saw the main general chat frozen for days as other chats continued apace because her incredibly raw and worrying blow up at the player was sitting there undeleted, unapologized for. I also see cultural rot in things like casual sexualization and voice ERP being accepted and not toned down, even after I explicitly told people to please keep the Booblin descriptions to a minimum. So I got a legitimate question. If they're actually like ERPing, like I'm imagining they're going like, you know, really hot and heavy and breathing heavy into the mic and moaning into the voice chat, why not just leave? You don't have to stay in a place that you don't enjoy. If this is the kind of server, the kind of vibes you don't like, you don't have to stay there. As soon as you find something and you say, hey, I don't like this, but they continue to do it, you could just be like, nope, and leave and just not deal with it. I mean, okay, on one hand, I do understand, like if it's really as bad as you say it is, and people will literally like moaning up a storm, just, oh yeah, give me that tiefling butt, right in the voice chat in front of people trying to roleplay, yeah, that'd be obnoxious and ridiculous. Does that sound outlandish? Yes. Have I heard people do like ERP in voice chat? Yes. It's not completely impossible. It does happen. It is hella awkward for things, but like if it's really that bad, then why even spend an iota in the server in the first place? Listen, just because your buddy is in the server doesn't mean you have to be in the server. And if something draws a line for you, and if you draw the line, people go over the line, just leave. No D&D is better than bad D&D. You could leave at any point. I'm honestly surprised you stayed for this long and listened to the whole thing. Or it's just saucy talk. Somebody could ironically look at like a flirtatious line being said in character as erotic roleplay just because it has a little bit of like sauciness, a little bit of that sexual tinge. Just because it's sexy doesn't mean it's erotic roleplay specifically. Of course, that also depends on the server's standards. If the server actually doesn't mind people being like low-key kind of softcore horny, if that's the kind of vibe they're going with, there's nothing wrong with that. People could do whatever they want at their table in private as long as they don't force it on other people. Clearly, it's the kind of vibe that's going on here. You don't like it. You voiced your concerns. I'm assuming, I hope you voiced your concerns. Nothing was done about it. I think the best thing to do at that point is just leave, because no D&D is better than bad D&D, and if this is not the vibe for you, probably best not to even spend more time on it, honestly. Funnily enough, after giving me that "we're all in this together" speech, then blocked me. I heard the server owner then went to that GM and player and said, "We've talked about this, you gotta stop doing that," and cannibalizing her own. So sure, maybe it's not a full server problem, but when the person whistleblowing about the issue is disgusted, sees it reflect poorly on you, and you attack them for that, it makes me the "stop ERP" rhetoric feel performative. Again, uncensored hentai and obviously fetish characters meant to be played in normal voice RPG sessions were approved by the mods and legitimized by the format of the game. The coda to this, and what really made it stick to me, is that a few months after this whole thing, the server owner died. For real, for real. I don't know how, I didn't pry or look up an obituary, but it's been confirmed to me that there was one. It left me gazing into a wreckage feeling hollow. This person had constructed a parasitic, growth-preventing insulation of power, slow decline, and a group toxicity about themselves, marred by constant trauma and immaturity-related outbursts that genuinely hurt her and the people around her, and created a non-environment and non-community of compelling status and forced discomfort that the majority of people disliked, but had enough emotional investment in to not want to turn away. To me, and many others, that's her online legacy, her human legacy. I don't really know what to make of that, except 3 general conclusions. Do not use RPG campaigns to create an open sandbox high-scale social space admissible to all desires and all wants in the RP space. It just leads to chafing, discomfort, misplaced expectations, and a scale that a friend group of moderators is not capable of handling. A space for everyone is a space for no one, and there's no shame in paring back the scope of a project to attract people who will be able to enjoy it like you. I suppose you should probably also add the fact that if you find yourself in a space like that and it's just not your vibe, the easiest thing to do is just leave at the end of the day. Like, I fully understand why you're frustrated. I fully understand why you felt justified in writing a big block of text and leaving before you could have anybody reply to it and stuff. At the end of the day, you can also control what spaces you're in, and you can physically control, you could just do things. You can do things. If you are in a Discord server and you like being in there, you can just leave. And somebody is bothering you, you can block them, you can mute them, you can basically stop interacting with them, you can control your life, you could just start doing things and start doing things for yourself. Do not put up with discomfort, pain, and parasitic social spaces just for a small ray of hope or the insistence that things will get better. You never know where those spiral or what kind of more existentially uncomfortable thing may be next. And you may find yourself deep in the ego project of a malignant narcissist. I can't tell if you're just really hurt by everything going on, or you're just being spiteful, or maybe this is like actual true. I don't know, man. RPG horror stories are written from your own perspective, so obviously your prerogative, your natural bias, without meaning to, is to try to paint yourself in a better light and the opposition in bad light. I fully believe that the server owner was a little bit narcissistic, but Jesus Christ, the person passed away and died. Pull the punches slightly. You sound really angry and bitter. At that point, you become a part of the problem, regulating and negotiating and normalizing deeply toxic online behaviors, as though the sanctity of the server named Blankolva means more than the principal action of stepping away from it. My friend, who didn't really even like the server anymore, took a few days to emotionally get over the proximity to the death of a person that didn't even like. The pain is real, and it didn't need to exist. Well, yeah, death is something people not gonna easily deal with. Death is not an easy thing. Somebody passing is not an easy thing to deal with. And also, who knows, maybe a friend did like the server even a little bit. You never know. Like, unironically, if you really think about it, like, I don't want to put OP on blast or anything, but there always could be a possibility. There could be a reality per se. There could be a truth out there that maybe just because you didn't like it doesn't mean other people didn't enjoy this server as it was, and maybe some of it was kind of lewd, maybe you over embellished how much pornographic stuff there were there. That could be a possibility, and yes, I believe you, but also could be a possibility that you're over embellishing it and maybe it wasn't so bad at the same time. What's the truth? I don't know. We're reading fun RPG horror stories, just making silly videos on it. Let's continue. Listen, I'm not trying to make a point and stuff, I'm just saying that both could be true and false at the same time. The barrier between comedically horny or mild raunchy RPG play and explicit sex-focused in-game fetishism needs to remain as rigid as the Iron Curtain and as wide as the Grand Canyon. Do not force, allow, or even imply casual intermingling between people who fundamentally want a classic RPG experience and people functionally looking to satisfy their sexual desire as the foremost thought. These two pathways are not compatible, and while the latter are only mildly disappointed when things don't work out, The former are made deeply, viscerally uncomfortable in a way that goes deeper than non-sexualized bad vibes. Trying to change something that's already pre-established is just going to be hard, regardless of how the server is running. I believe you, the server is probably a disaster. It was probably awful. You should have just left and just not bothered and wasted time trying to dissect and analyze how the server functions and why it functions in such a way. I feel like genuinely this was a waste of your time. I didn't act right. Shouldn't have been aggressive. Probably shouldn't have given into my train wreck mentality of joining in the first place. But I wanted a Pathfinder experience. My friends were there and insisted it could be good. And I was a pithy, pseudo-intellectual 21-year-old post-COVID who kind of wanted to feel superior to others. But I promise, and I hope you'll take my word, that there was zero hyperbole here in the emotional discomfort, in casual hypersexualization, the toxic community, the silent acquiescence to power-hungry narcissists, and the weird emotional hole formed in me when I learned about how it all ended. I hope people can learn from this story. I feel like I talked enough. Honestly, I've expressed everything I possibly could express. There's nothing I could say at the end of the day that wouldn't just repeat what I've already said. My thoughts now is... Actually, no, I don't have any thoughts. The only thing I'll do at the end of the day is ask you guys, the viewers, the question. What are your thoughts about this last story, particularly? About everything going on? What are your theories about what exactly went down? I would love to just have us theorize and theory craft about what really happened, what really went down. Like, I believe, yes, there probably was an element of this stuff going on. Do I think some of it might have been over-embellished to show they paint the opposition bad light and paint the rest of the servers and the owner in really bad light as if there's some horrible jerks? Yeah, probably a little bit. There's probably a little bit of that going on there. And even at the end of the day, you describe yourself as an intellectual. You're writing on a Reddit post.
Editor Morrow here to explain what I mean. Instead of focusing on being an intellectual, you should focus on being wise. The wise thing to do in that situation would be to leave and just not engage with the server. Find better pastors. No D&D is better than bad D&D. Don't engage in bad D&D. Only focus on being in good D&D.
And with that, that's going to be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales Tomorrow. Bye-bye.